Hello, everybody. Welcome to our webinar today. I'm Adam from SpiderOak's customer success team.
And I'm Kelly from SpiderOak's customer success team as well. Welcome.
Yeah, welcome. We're really excited to have you here with us today. Today is a topic that I think is really important, mostly because I'm an iOS user, but I think that generally mobile security and privacy is something that is increasingly more important as more of our lives end up on our devices. And it's something that maybe people aren't as aware of or sure about. So we hope today's presentation and the discussion that we have with you will be able to clear up any questions you have, give you some good direction and tips for things you can do to be more secure, and just generally make you more aware of ways you can use your devices to protect yourself and make you more secure. So first to start, we want to encourage you to use the chat feature, which you'll see on the side of your screen at any time during the presentation. Please don't hesitate to put your questions or thoughts in there. We see those as we're sharing our presentation, and we'll do our very best to make sure we can get as many answers for you as possible. Also, at the end, we have a handout that we'll share with you that has links to many of the resources that we'll talk about during the presentation today. So please don't be shy. Put anything you want in the chat section, and we really want this to be, an interactive experience where you get the information you need. So, all right. Well, without further ado, I'll hand the time over to Kelly.
Awesome. Well, welcome everyone. Glad you guys could join us here today. Of course, the topic we're discussing today is security and privacy for your iOS device. Of course, most basic question, why do I need to worry about security and privacy on my phone? As Adam just stated, the amount of personal information we feed into our phones continues to grow at an alarming rate. So security and privacy should be a focus for everybody moving forward. It doesn't matter if you're the type who's secretly browsing under the table during like a family dinner, or if you're taking, geotag selfies and instantly uploading them online for all your followers to see. We can all benefit by being a little more sensitive with our information. So today we are covering the importance of implementing extra security and privacy in that little thing that's constantly attached to your hand, your iOS device. So let's discuss, how can I make my device more secure/private? Well, there are several settings, applications, and features available for your iOS device that can be enabled, disabled, downloaded to make your device more secure and private, but it is important that we start with the basics. Kind of a basic number one, set a passcode. This is the absolute basic security and privacy practice. If your device, and this goes beyond iOS devices, if your device offers you to create a passcode, do it. It's important enough for the developers to put it in there. So absolutely do it. We'll cover how to make this passcode more secure here in a little bit. The second basic here, update your device. Keep your device up to date. This is the only way your device can stay current, and you should receive notifications when new updates are available. More often than not, a device is compromised by the attacker exploiting vulnerabilities that have already been patched by the developer. Next, physical security and awareness. Be aware of your device's location at all times. Be sure to lock your device when you're not using it. It takes a matter of seconds for someone to simply pocket your device, and now they're in possession of all of your private information. This one seems very, very simple, but I've seen people on public transportation set it down and walk away, even if it's just for a moment. Please always keep it with you in your possession. The next basic, avoid public Wi-Fi connections. This also applies to every device you own. Who's to say that you're connecting to a legitimate access point and not a social engineering attack? You could be giving away username, passwords without even knowing or being prompted to type that information in. So I personally recommend upgrading your data plan if you need to browse on the fly. Next, this is also another simple basic. Activate private browsing. This simple step will turn your mobile browser into a private session, which will not store your searches, your browser history, or username/password combinations. Cookies will continue to be held on the device until the browsing session is closed, so keep in mind. Private browsing only affects the device being used. The sites you visit and searches you perform are still visible on network logs that your school, employer, and your internet service provider monitor regularly. Of course, another basic, disable Bluetooth when not in use, just due to kind of recent compromises with people leaving their Bluetooth unlocked. Those are the basics for pretty much any device taking security and privacy into your own hands. Now I will pass it over to Adam regarding modifying device settings for security and privacy.
Yep. Thanks, Kelly. And just let me say, last year, my wife and I sat down. One of the issues we have is we have kids that are getting old enough that they use our family iPads for a number of different things. Turning on or making sure that we have the private browsing enabled by default, that was one of the best decisions I think we've ever made, because now we don't have to worry about cookies or trackers or things like that. Is private browsing foolproof? No. And it's not really an all-in-one solution, but it is a good first step. And little things like that can make a big difference. Now, this section, we're going to talk about some specific settings. I've got screenshots in here, but as I said before, we're going to have a handout that we'll share with you that has the specific screens you'll need to go to enable all of these or adjust all these settings. The first one is creating a stronger passcode. Now, Kelly covered this a little bit, but on iOS specifically, having a passcode is so important. This is what starts make sure that you have an encrypted device. If you don't enable a passcode, the data on your iOS device will be unencrypted. Just by virtue of enabling any kind of a passcode, your device is then encrypted, which means that if somebody stole your device and it was turned off, they wouldn't be able to get any data off the device whatsoever. So please, at the very least, take that step of creating a passcode. Now, creating a stronger passcode is even more important for a couple of different reasons. If you have the default 4-digit passcode enabled, just by looking at the screen, an attacker knows there's only 4 digits. If you enable the stronger passcode, which you can do under Settings, Touch ID and Passcode, then go to Change Passcode and to Passcode Options. And that's the screen that you see here. It gives you a couple of different options, such as an alphanumeric code or a custom numeric code. With either of those two options enabled, the device does not show someone entering the passcode when the correct number of digits or letters and digits have been entered. This makes attacking your device through a manual brute force attack so much more difficult. People will have no idea the total length of your passcode. So make sure it's something that's convenient to enter. That's important too. But this is one of the highest things you can do to leverage your privacy and increase your privacy on your device. Now, with the advent of Touch ID and Face ID, there have been a lot of new privacy concerns that have come out with iOS devices. I don't have a device that has Face ID, but I do have one that has Touch ID. It's great. I like it a lot. There are some things you need to know about Face ID in particular if you're thinking about upgrading to a device that has this. Kelly Sheridan, who is a journalist and a privacy researcher, in a recent article on darkreading.com, talked about Face ID and said, Apple claims its Face ID authentication is 20 times more accurate than Touch ID. Only 1 in 1 million people would have a face similar enough to a given user's face to successfully bypass Face ID. That's the same failure rate as a 6-digit passcode. In comparison, there's a 1 in 50,000 chance a random user could log into an iPhone with Touch ID using a fingerprint. So if you need to understand that Face ID is supposedly going to be more secure. And I think this is an important thing to monitor carefully if you decide to go to a device that has Face ID. Watch the articles and the security research that comes out about Face ID so that you can make an informed decision over whether or not this is a feature you want to enable. Now, as a general recommendation, we still strongly recommend that you use a passcode. But if you do decide to enable Touch ID or Face ID, there are some things you can do to quickly disable them. And this is important, especially in light of some recent court rulings that involve biometric ID as a means to unlock your device. It is not legal for law enforcement or immigration in the United States to force you to enter a passcode. It is legal for them to force you to use biometric ID to unlock a device. So with iOS 11, there's a new feature that allows you to very quickly disable both of these types of biometric ID. On any device that has iOS 11, all you need to do is click the power button, the sleep wake button, 5 times quickly. And when you do that, pushing the home button or the power button brings you up to the third screen you see here, which says that you must enter your passcode because Touch ID or Face ID have been disabled. On the iPhone X, reports that I've read say that if you take your device in your hand and press down the buttons on both sides of the phone, it will have the same effect of automatically disabling these biometric IDs. So hopefully this is never an issue for you, but you need to know this is, for me, this is one of the main reasons I upgraded to iOS 11, because I wanted to have this option on my phone to quickly disable Touch ID. All right, the next setting that we want to talk about is app location services. Many applications on your phone use the GPS coordinates that your phone picks up automatically to operate properly. I'm a big sports fan. A lot of apps that allow you to watch or stream TV in particular will not allow you to do that if you don't have location services enabled on those apps. However, there are some apps that you should make sure you go into the location services and set the location to never when using those apps. For example, it's important that you do not geotag your photos if they're going to be shared online at all. So setting this setting to never for the camera app is important. And for reference, this is under Settings, Privacy, Location Services, and you can see all the different apps that can access your location. So don't geotag your photos if you plan on sharing them. Also, third-party applications can ask for your location by default if the developer wasn't aware that they need to disable this. We don't ever want to assume that an application is being malicious, but it's always better to double check. And if you can't think of a good reason why an app should be able to access your location, you should definitely disable it. If you have any specific questions about this, please be sure to let us know, and we can give you some suggestions on this. I'll tell you, on my phone, the only apps that I allow to use location services are those apps are set to while using. They are not set to always. I can't think of any app that I think is important enough to be able to always have my location data. So the apps that need it to function, set it to while using, not to always. Another thing that you need to be aware of in regards to location services is Share My Location. Now, this is a great feature for some situations. You know, I have a son who's got a phone now, and I really enjoy being able to use this, the Find My Friends feature to know where my son's at. And I know that my wife enjoys being able to see where I'm at during my daily commute or something like that. But you need to be aware of who you shared your location with, and you need to periodically double check that you're not sharing your location with people who don't need it. If there's nobody you feel like you need to share your location with, under Settings, Privacy, then Location Services, and Share My Location, you'll be able to disable this, and you'll also be able to set which of your Apple devices can share your location. If you do choose to enable Share My Location, make sure that you enable it from one device only. You'll still be able to use apps like Find My Friends from other devices that are signed into your Apple ID. But if you have a phone and an iPad, or if you have an Apple computer, you don't need to share your location from more than one device. Just share from one device that you often check to kind of audit the list of people that you're sharing your location with. Enable erase data goes along with your passcode or your Touch ID. This feature will wipe your phone after 10 unsuccessful passcode login attempts. This is it's important if you enable this to make sure you also have frequent backups. Funny enough, last night I was on the road traveling back on a business trip, and one of our family iPads got erased because my son was playing around with the passcode. So today we're going to be doing a restore on my iPad, but I'm glad that we have this option so that, in the case of somebody stealing a device, I'm much happier with all my data being gone off of a device and having the small inconvenience of having to restore from a backup in a situation like what happened with us yesterday. So under Settings, Touch ID, and Passcode, then Erase Data, you'll be able to enable the 10 failed attempts erase data setting. All right, a few more settings for you. Limit lock screen notifications. This is very important to do. Unless you know you will have constant contact with your device, you should be aware of the apps that can show information on the lock screen. Each time you set up a new app and it asks you to enable notifications, go into the notification settings and decide where those notifications will appear for you. You can find all of the lock screen notifications under Settings, Touch ID, Settings, Siri Access when locked. This will enable you to disable or enable Siri from the lock screen. And then for your other apps, just under Settings, Notifications, you can go into each individual app and decide if you'd like to have those notifications show up on your lock screen. A suggestion that I'd like to give is for things like your mail or your messages that come in. I personally choose not to show the plain text of those notifications on my lock screen. I don't mind getting a notification from mail that says you've got a new piece of email. What I don't want is the first line of that email to show up on my lock screen. I feel that's pretty insecure. And so that's something that you can look at in the individual app notifications. Now, in particular for Siri, by default, Siri can do all kinds of things when your phone is locked. Audit this. Make sure you're comfortable with the things that Siri can do, such as voice dialing, sending messages, posting to Facebook. I had an experience where I was in downtown Kansas City at the River Market, sat down to eat lunch, and there was a phone on the bench where we sat down. Somebody left their device. Well, he'd also enabled all the voice notifications. I didn't obviously know the phone number of the phone, but I used Siri and posted to his Facebook page to say, hey, you left your phone here at the River Market. His wife saw it and came back and picked up his phone. Happy ending for him. That is so insecure. Please make sure that you know what Siri can do when your phone is locked, and disable everything you will not use. Now, that's it for the security settings. We went through these fairly quickly, so if there's any of the settings that you didn't catch or that you have questions about, again, in fact, I'll share that with you right now, the handout, so that you have access to that. And I will turn the time over to Kelly.
Great. Thanks, Adam. I appreciate it. So now we're going to speak about iOS applications for those who are focused on security and privacy. The first application we'll be speaking about is Signal. Signal is an encrypted communications application for Android and iOS. Uses the internet to send one-to-one and group messages, which can include files, voice notes, images, and videos. Make one-to-one voice and video calls as well. The website we will be providing in the handout also. The next application and service in general, Protonmail. Protonmail uses client-side encryption to protect email contents and user data before they are sent to Protonmail servers, in contrast to other common email providers such as Gmail and Hotmail. The service can be accessed through a webmail client or dedicated iOS and Android apps. I do see a note as well that another excellent encrypted email service is Tutanota. Yep.
Tutanota.
Excellent. So that's another one worth checking out. The web address will be in the handout as well. The next application we'll be speaking about is specifically and only available currently on the enterprise marketplace. So it's super useful. I've read a bunch of reviews on this application as well. Zips, Z-I-P-S. Zips is a mobile intrusion prevention system app that's developed by Simperium that provides comprehensive protection for iOS and Android devices against mobile network, device, and application cyber attacks. As I stated, currently only available in the enterprise marketplace, and the website is available to do your own research. Really hope they get into the personal market. That would be great. Next up, DuckDuckGo. This is something we use in-house. In addition to an excellent mobile app, you can set DuckDuckGo to be mobile Safari's default search engine. The steps to do so are in the handout, but you simply just go to Settings, access Safari, Search Engine, and you'll select DuckDuckGo from the list. The great thing about DuckDuckGo, never tracks your searches. We very highly recommend using it. As I stated, we use it in-house for everything. The final application I'll touch base on today, of course, Semaphore. Semaphore is SpiderOak's no-knowledge groups messaging and file sharing application. It's available for iOS, Android, Mac, Windows, and Linux. It's free for teams of any size, which comes with 30 days of data retention. Of course, if you wish to keep data retention for longer, you can upgrade to paid plans as well. But it is free for teams of any size with that 30 days of data retention. Also, Semaphore 2.0 is coming Q1 2018. And the link, of course, spideroak.com/semaphore, and that's in our handout as well. But those are just a few applications that can get you up and running, especially for the security and privacy focus. Those are dead on must-haves as far as applications go. But yeah, I do appreciate everyone coming in today. We appreciate you watching the webinar. Hopefully you got some really useful information in regards to taking the security and privacy into your own hands for iOS devices. Of course, if you're a multi-device user, next week we'll be running a similar webinar for Android devices. So that's going to be super useful as well. But I appreciate you guys coming in and watching today. Adam, was there anything you wanted to leave off with?
Well, it looks like we've got a question about geotagging. So that's I assume you're asking about photos in particular. So one of the security loopholes that we've seen utilized recently is geotagging in photos, which just means if you're an Apple user, you've probably seen the Photos app. One of the cool features of Photos is if you do geotag your photos, you can search through your shots based on where they were taken. That information is just contained in a geocode, which is, the long string of numbers that gives longitude and latitude down to a very specific location. The problem with this is if you share a photo online and it was a geotagged photo, somebody who downloads it can then reverse, simply by going to Google Maps, putting in that geocode, they'll be able to find where your photo was taken. If you're like most people like me, I take a lot of photos at home, maybe in the front yard, maybe in the backyard, in the house with the kids. So anything that I put on Facebook or Twitter that's geotagged, someone who is malicious and understands how this works could very easily track down my house. Now, Julie just asked if it's possible to strip them before sharing. There are some third-party tools that do this. I don't have one in specific that I recommend because I don't geotag any of my photos. But if this is something you're interested in, there are a number of third-party services that can do this. And this is one of those difficult things that the convenience of having geotagged photos is great, but it's a pretty significant security risk for people that you share them with. And that's one of the great parts of taking photos is being able to share them with people. So
absolutely.
Either don't enable it or use one of the third-party services that can strip that information out. Mm-hmm. Now, I do know from experience with the Photos app on Mac, you're able to manually strip out geotags if you're using the Photos app, but you have to do it one by one. So not quite as convenient, but for specific photos, that is an option. Any other questions that you have? You're very welcome. We do want, one of the things that we hope that we can provide to everybody as a company is services beyond just, thank you. Flickr is an option for removing geotags. Great. I appreciate knowing that.
Awesome.
Yeah. I'm not a serious enough photographer to use Flickr very often. If you ever do have questions, regardless of if it's about one of our products or not, don't hesitate to reach out to our customer success team. Support.spideroak.com is where you can contact our support team. And aside from being experts in the software that we make, we're also a group of people that feel really strongly about security and privacy. So if you just have a general question, reach out to us. We're available through our support site or on social media, and we're happy to help to the best of our ability to answer just general security questions. It's easy with the way the world is right now to feel a little bit hopeless. Security is broken. Let's be honest about it, right? Most of the security with all the hacks and Equifax is just a dumpster fire every day with more information coming out about how badly they messed up. It's easy to feel like you have no control, but we don't want you to feel like that because it's not true. You can control a lot of aspects of your security. And even if the question you have isn't about SpiderOak's products, we want to help you to the extent we can. So please don't ever hesitate to reach out to us just to ask general questions. All right. Any final comments or things you'd like us to answer for you? We'll give just another few seconds to see if any of those come in. Kelly, any final thoughts you'd like to share?
No, you really drove it home with the last statement, and that's great to know about Flickr as well. So I appreciate that bit of information. I'll look into that also. So thank you so much for that.
All right. Well, thanks again for joining us today. We hope that this has been useful. Have any other follow-up questions or anything? Don't hesitate to let us know at support.spideroak.com. Also, if you're registered, you'll get a link to a recording of this webinar. You're welcome to watch that. And on our website at spideroak.com/webinars, you can see this recording as well as any other recordings of all of our other webinars at any time. thanks again for joining us today, and we hope you have a great day.
Thanks, guys. Take care.